new beginning. Welcome to the Grief Dreams podcast. My name is Sean Ram alongside Dr. Joshua Black, and we're here doing another episode with another interesting guest. And again, just wanted to convey our gratitude to all of those that are listening. We really appreciate wherever you're listening from, giving us the time out of your day to kind of listen to these interviews, and we really just hope that you enjoy them and possibly get something out of it. So let's get started. So on today's podcast, we have Medea Bavarella Chechik, and she is the best-selling author of Facing Grief with Eyes Wide Open, a transformative teacher, transformational facilitator and leader, and a master coach. Medea is the founder and host of WeEvolve TV, an online talk show where she has interviewed many luminaries in the field of human consciousness. Medea, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here with you, with both of you.
We're excited to be here with you too. Yes. Once again, thank you for coming on. And I know you have a story to tell, and you've done a lot. You've wrote a book. You're running your own TV show. Was it the grief that started the loss of that started your journey? Is that what sort of provoked you to go into this direction?
No, not at all. I have been my journey in a way since I was born. I was born, and I knew as a child that this life was going to be a significant, for a lack of better descriptive word, significant for me. And so I was always, starting my life semi-conscious, aware. I was always aware of myself, aware of everything, and aware that there was something more to life than just what I was observing, around me. And so I think that since that time, since I was a child, I had this impulse inside of me that I was born with to seek for the meaning of life. Why am I here for? I was fascinated by those questions. What does it all mean? What is life? What is this life all about? And mostly, what is love? I mean, I would observe around me people's, situation, and then I would think to myself, wow, how come these people don't know that the most important thing is love? How come they don't know that, that's what, that it felt like, I was observing the illusion, the game, that people play, the ego at play in life. And I was like perplexed, even as a child, and why are they doing that? Don't they know that there's something more than this? And since my, I guess, high school, university, I was interested, again, continue even more into discovering the meaning of life, the meaning of my life, the meaning of everything. And so I studied philosophy in university. I took psychology first, but then I didn't like psychology. And so I switched to philosophy. And then, of course, after that...
Wait, you don't like psychology? Come on. That's like my career.
Well, I'll tell you why. Because then I went into psychotherapy after university, because then I realized that I was more interested in the more spiritual, more holistic perspective, from that perspective of understanding human condition and understanding how the mind works and understand how emotions work and how they affect us and what can we do. So I studied transformative psychotherapy. In psychology, it was really the first year. I didn't like it because it was the first year was primarily about statistics, about, and it was like, oh God, I didn't think, I realized I was disappointed because I thought, oh, this is not what I thought psychology was. Then of course I didn't hang in there. And then to discover.
If you would have hung in there, there's so many other courses, but the first year is usually the hardest year too, just because it's so different from what people expect. And you're really just looking at, there's like a bunch of mountaintops, right? Like cognition,
totally.
behavior. all the sort of stuff, right? And dreams and, you know, all that sort of stuff. So like they only like really just talk about the tops of the mountains of the subject, just to give people an idea. And there's some people that say like it's a lot to handle because there's so much that they're going after, and they try to teach a little bit of statistics too. And also your teacher's a big part, right? Because when I went to Brock, the psychology teachers were amazing, and both of them are retiring this year. But it's like your teacher is, you know, one of the things that can sell you on a topic or not. I know of in high school, some high school teachers that really were good at math, and I loved the way they taught math, and I got really into it. And there's other ones that really turned me away from the subject based on who they were. So, you know, it could have been the teacher, it could just been like the experience, but you're right. So what you're doing now anyways is psychology, in the sense of going into the behavior, why people think the way they do, emotions, all that psychology. So it's nice how you got away and you came back.
Yes, and I understand about. I agree about the teacher plays a big role, because when I was in high school, for example, in grade 13, one of my favorite subject was Latin, believe it or not. I took 2 Latin courses, one in grammar, you know, the other one in poetry, because the teacher, she was just amazing, and I just loved Latin. But then, yes, after university, I was searching. I continued searching, but my search led me more to the alternative field, and so I started getting into healing modalities, energy healing, and then eventually I realized that what I was more interested in was, again, the psychotherapy. I wanted to help people. I wanted to help myself, and I wanted to help people within the context of their lives, and how they relate with their lives, and how their life influences them, and the wounding, and how do we deal with the difficulties, the challenges of life. So then I went into psychotherapy, and this was a long time ago. And then I continue my studies, and always within the context of this alternative way of looking at medicine and healing and psychology. And that led me to many other studies, and the death of. So I was already into really going deeper into understanding life and understanding my place in life and the meaning of that. I was already a seeker of love, of life, of the greatest, the highest meaning. And then 9 years ago, that major event, the death of my son. And interestingly enough, everything that I had learned, everything that I knew from a cognitive, from a mind perspective, it didn't really help me. I wasn't sitting there and saying, oh, okay, let me deal with my emotions of grief and let me see how I can transform this. It wasn't like that at all. It was the shock, the intensity of the trauma of losing him was so severe, was so intense, that it really threw me off guard, and it threw me off my central axis within myself, so to speak. I used to write, I started writing right from the first few months, because writing became very catalytic for me, became very therapeutic. And as I was writing my experience, my feelings, then I was becoming more and more the observer. And so what it did, it kind of brought me a little bit outside of the intensity and looking in, leaning in and say, oh my God, this is really what happened. This is incredible, Medea. Wow, you really like this. So looking back right now, the writing helped me become the witness of my own experience. And so everything that I knew, I say, it was like I was uprooted from my own self, from my own life, and thrown into the universe. So I was really floating in the universe, not knowing who I was, not literally not knowing who I was, but more like, oh my God, what does it all mean now? because it's like my whole life, it felt that my whole life as I had known it up to that moment was gone, was done. So I also experienced a sense of death, not literal death, of course, but more like a metaphysical and emotional, psychological death, because I realized my whole life revolved around my son in a way. And when he was gone, it was like a part of me, like my heart was really broken, literally. and a big part of me, a big part of my soul was gone with him. That's what it felt like. And even the grieving process, the actual grieving, how I grieved, and of course I didn't plan any of this, it just happened. And so it was like life was doing something to me, through me. And then the only thing I could do really at the beginning was just surrender, because there was nothing else I could do other than just die myself. And so I just surrendered and allowed this intensity of this life, the energy of grief, that it was so potent, to work through me. And a lot of it was experienced on a physical level. It was like I could feel it in my belly, I could feel it in my womb, the grief, the pain. It was like, it was really interesting. And I think I write about this in my book. It seemed like to me, it was like the reverse labor pains. I don't, you probably don't, you're a man, you haven't given birth, so you may not understand, but, giving birth, when you're giving birth to a child, the same thing happens. Life happens through you, and you're just a witness, and you just have to really open up and surrender and allow this birth to come through your body. And it's very intense and it's very painful. And the same thing was happening, through the grief. It was like my son's soul, was leaving me, in my body. And so I felt that pain on a physical level as well. And so it was a very real experience. It wasn't just an emotional or psychological, it was a real, true life, cosmic experience, for a lack of better words. It was beyond anything that I could have ever imagined. I was already fairly acquainted with death, because in 2000, both my mother, my beloved mother, and my only sister died of cancer. And I was at their deathbed, supporting their process of crossing over. And then in 2002, my father passed away. So I had already gone through all of those experiences. But losing my son was in a category all of itself. It was just beyond anything that I could ever imagined. And I wasn't prepared for it at all. So it was really, it really went really deep inside of my being, in my soul. It was a soul process. And as I said at the beginning, the only thing left for me to do was surrender. And as I start surrendering, as I start to, I went deep in myself, because my heart, as I said, as I had known it before, up to that moment, up to that time, it was totally shattered. And it was like my whole sense of self was momentarily destroyed, let's say, my sense of self. And so there was a period of time when I was floating in the sense of like, okay, what is this? What happens now? What do I do now? Who am I now? And so I allowed myself to go through this process of not knowing, what I was, not knowing what I was going, not knowing what it all meant, except the deep pain. And it was very, very, very intense, deep pain. I had an experience just, actually tomorrow is my son's birthday, coincidentally. He died when he was 24, 9 years ago, and he would have been 34 tomorrow. He would have turned 34. And a few nights ago, and I wrote about this, and actually I posted on my Facebook page. I had an intense experience, and occasionally I have these experiences where I feel like there's like his soul or his spirit visits me, these visions, these visitations, and he came, as an energy I felt, and again it was just this incredible love, because now that's all like our own connection, our own bond has transformed and has evolved into another in a higher way, where we just know each other, where we connect with each other in our heart, in the love that is eternal. Because that energy, the vibration of love, it doesn't change, doesn't break, doesn't end.
And
So
when was the first time you felt that, like in your grief journey? Was it
yeah,
like soon after, or was it after that floating, that almost that numbness
well, it was
wore off?
I think it was about around 6 months after, where I would, every night I would sit, try to be with myself in meditation, to take a little respite from what I used to call them, the grief attacks, because in the grief attacks, just like the labor pains would come intermittently every, at first like every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, and then it would come, maybe every half hour, and they were really intense. And so there was a little bit of time in between, and at nighttime, having gone through all of that, I would just sit with myself and say, oh, Medea, again, being the witness of myself and saying, oh my God, this is intense. This is just like beyond anything. You lost him. You lost. Yeah, I used to have dreams of losing a baby boy, a child. You lost him. He's gone forever. Like my mind was trying to make sense of it, And I remember one night specifically, as I was doing this, where I was trying to be with myself present, it felt like as if I really was seeing myself from the outside of myself. And what I saw, it was like, it almost like shocked me. It was like, because I really saw the intensity of what I had gone through. And what happened as I was witnessing that, and I was saying, oh my God, Medea, I am so sorry. I heard myself saying, I am so sorry for you. I am so sorry that you have to go through all of this. Why? Because I see what you're going through is beyond. It's too much. So it was like it was like an innate, deep compassion and empathy arose from the deeper than my own sense of self, deeper than even the grief. I would now, looking back, I would say from my soul level, from my spirit, from the spirit of the universe, as it moves through me, as to this deep compassion, empathy for my grieving self. And then I instinctively put my arms around myself, embracing myself and saying, I love you, Medea. I love you. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry that you had to go through this. So it was like I tapped into this love that is the love of the universe, this unconditional, this I tapped into the actual vibration and frequency of universal love in myself. And as I wrote the experience that I had a few nights ago, it was like I write, it was love, that saved me. That's the only thing. I mean, I write a lot of poetry, so a lot of my writing is a little bit more poetically inclined, and so it felt like, it's like love, the creative energy and process of life itself was coming inside of me to rescue me, to support me, and to save me. And so that's how I started this whole going. I would experience the grief, I would experience the loss, I would experience the anxiety, the overwhelming experience of not even knowing where I was going. And in fact, one night I projected into the future, into my future life, and I really didn't. It was like I didn't see my life. I didn't see my future, and that kind of scared me a little bit. It scared me a little bit, and then I understood that my life was hanging by a thread, so to speak. And then I also understood that it was up to me to make a decision which direction I was going to go. Literally, was I going to die or was I going to live? And then I sensed from deep inside of myself that that it was up to me, and that I needed to make a strong intention, a strong commitment. And so I just harnessed that knowing, and then I spoke aloud to the universe, to God, to Divine Mother, Goddess, life, and say, okay, hear me, I choose to live, because I sensed that there was, there was still more for me to do, that I was still needing to fulfill my soul purpose. And at that point, I still didn't know that actually my son's death was going to be part of that. But I just knew that there was something more for me to do. And so then I made that decision, that choice to live. That was the initiation, the turnaround, where I started to support myself into navigating the grief, whatever the journey was going to be for me. And it lasted about 3 to 3 years intensely, but was in supporting me into moving into the next phase, even though I had no idea what that phase was going to be. So what I call it, was supporting myself. It was, my son's death was a rebirth for me. And that's what I saw, that experience that I saw the other night, and I read about it. Was like I found myself, I could see this vortex where both my son's spirit and I, this was last week, were merged into one at a soul level. And then I saw that he had played, that his part of his role, his destiny, was to support me in this. The irony of it, that there was a rebirth that I went through, but it was a rebirth of really now stepping and living from my soul. And that could only, it's in this context of my life, it could happen through the death of my son. So death and rebirth happened at the same time, the yin and the yang. He died and I was reborn. It was the beginning of my rebirth. I write this, the cosmic irony, my son's death was my rebirth. I was reborn as the true me right then when my son died. It gave birth to true unconditional love in my heart, which several years later allowed me to experience also divine love. So then I could say that this rebirth was the rebirth of knowing, starting to know myself as my soul, as the true, as the true self, as the true me, other than my conditioning, my upbringing, and even my spiritual understanding of life. It was just really knowing it directly, with that direct knowing. And it was also, that rebirth was also the rebirth of knowing myself as love, as what love is, and knowing it in myself, in my heart, in my body, in my being, not just knowing it in my head, knowing it. Yes, of course, we all know that part of the meaning of life is love, but this was like, I really knew it. I started to know it. And then, about 4 years after his passing, I write about it in my book as well. I started experiencing what I called it a personal renaissance, which is like my heart started really opening and stretching. And I start really experiencing not only love, but joy. I would experience grief and sadness and joy almost like simultaneously. It was like I was really experiencing all of it, the holy and the broken, hallelujah. Leonard Cohen. And then I started writing poetry, and in the poetry, that experience of being reborn and what it meant for me, and then knowing love, knowing the beloved. I've read a lot about the beloved, knowing about true love start coming through, start manifesting itself through the poetry. Because that's where, even though I was writing the poetry as part of the grief, but actually the poems, most of the poems were about how I came out of my dream. It was my transformation, my transmutation. That's what really the poetry was, and the words that I used were about that.
Yeah, let's we're definitely going to get into some of your poetry in a bit, but let's go back. I wanted to acknowledge the power of what you went through in terms of the change, because essentially your foundation was shaken. It was, and you went through again, I'm so sorry for your loss. You went through
Thank you.
a mother's worst fear, right? Like you went through this type of this anguish, this pain. I mean, you do an amazing job describing it, and you had to kind of rebuild that foundation again. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Just 'cause, there's a lot of people out there, a lot of mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters, and people who go through that type of loss in their life, and then it kind of shakes their world. And it definitely, you could tell that you're that type of person who asks that question, why first, why. And seeing you understand this conceptually, just wrap your head around the grief process and everything that's going on, that's incredible, because you became that phoenix who burns and dies and then gets reborn again.
And so I'm really curious about the poetry. Were you always into poetry, or was that something that only started after the death?
I was always fascinated, and I always liked writing since I was in grade school. Like, actually, in grade school, I was in Italy. That's where I was born, and that's where I grew up till I was 16. I remember in grade school, I won a contest, the whole school, about a composition that I wrote. But poetry, I wrote maybe a couple of poems here and there, but I didn't really go into it fully and more systematically. Like, I was writing poetry every day until a few years after the death of my son.
That's amazing. Do you have one? Do you have a one sample writing that you could share with us that really sort of understood your process, or maybe one of your favorite ones that you've wrote during your grief process?
Okay. Yes, I have one here. I call it The Garden. It's entitled, "There is a garden filled with most exquisite beauty, indecipherable, expansive, and vast. Although it is in me, it is beyond me. It is an unfathomable matrix of love beyond life, a love made from pieces of starlight from one infinite universe. Love, loving itself, wanting to be more and more love, birthing new life with each breath. It is in this garden that I keep on meeting you over and over again, beyond your death, beyond my life. In this garden, there is no death. There is only never-ending merging of our one spirit. How sweet it is, this merging with you in this garden of forever love." So that's one.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's actually, it's nice. It's nice hearing that from you, and especially with a lot of your journey, I can understand sort of what you're talking about within the poetry. My big thing with poetry is it's hard for me to understand where the person's coming from sometimes. But like with the way you wrote that, I understood because of the conversation that
Yes.
we're having, and how beautiful that is that you found a way to continue that bond with your son in a new way, and in a more loving way, I guess, too, because he's different in the sense that he's providing you a love that you could never have imagined he could provide. Like it's because he said he's helping you, and usually as a son, you're helping them. As a mother. So it's almost like the roles were reversed a little way, in the sense that he's giving and providing you this love that almost like he couldn't provide as a son.
Yes. And my relationship, I raised my son on my own since he was a year and a half. It wasn't always an easy, it was challenging. It was challenging, challenging, especially as a teenager. He was a little lost. He didn't have a father, and as we all know today, that is has a very tremendous, in a lot of ways, challenging impact on young men, not having a positive role model to guide them through life. And so that was, and how he acted out. I remember when he was about 10 years old, I was, in my room, and I was getting ready to go out, and he comes into my room and he goes, "Mom," he goes, "I made a decision." He was literally 10 years old. And I said, "Really? What?" He goes, "I think that because I'm not academically smart enough," which was not true. He, he didn't conform to the norm because he was beyond the norm. And so, but he started thinking, he was going to the Waldorf school. He started believing that, because, that maybe he wasn't. He was an academic. He was very physical. He was into martial arts. He had a kinesthetic, a body, physical intelligence. He could do anything in sports and martial art. He was very strong physically. And he goes, "Oh, since, because I don't think I'm academic alive, I was thinking, what am I going to do with my life? Who am I going to be?" He goes, "I come to the conclusion, I think I'm going to be a rebel." That's what he said to me, literally.
That's funny. I didn't know that was an option, a job option.
Well, he made a conscious decision at that early age. And I understand it now, where that was coming from and why I made that decision. I mean, of course, in that moment, I didn't take it that seriously. I said, "Oh, okay." But then I realized afterwards that he really lived his life as a rebel in a way. And that was challenging, and it was challenging for him, and it was challenging for me. So a lot of times, because of that, he couldn't. And he has expressed a lot of this through different transmissions that have come through different people, through him, how he just did not know how to express a lot of his emotions, a lot of his truth, because of the struggle that he was going through within himself. So he was not able to access a lot of things at a soul level, his beauty, his love, when he was alive, because he was too focused on being the rebel. And so it came after he died, in our navigating and shifting our connection at a soul level in love. And so then I started understanding the role that he played, both our roles, how he helped me, how we made this agreements at a soul level that he was going to play those roles for me, for my own becoming, for my own rebirth, and how as I'm living my life now, and as I am specifically learning how to love, not only myself, because of course to love, we have to learn to love ourselves first, because then how do we going to know really what love is, and how to give it to anybody else. And I do have love in my life as well. 5 years ago, I met the love, what I call the love of my life, my soul. We're loving at a soul level. And how through giving this love and receiving this love with my partner, I'm really learning even more deeply what love is, and how it's expressed, and how it works into the everyday life. And so as I am doing that, as I am learning how to love and how to be loved, in a way, I'm sensing that I'm doing this for him as well, for my son as well, because he wasn't able to do this in this life, and I wasn't able to do this for him, because I also was mostly focused on raising him and as a single parent, and providing healthy boundaries and all that stuff, that a lot of times we missed the point. because those experiences of everyday life were so challenging that sometimes. And so now I feel like, this is what it is about. This is what I didn't do then that I'm doing it now. And he is experiencing it through me, in this life. He's doing it wherever he is, I know, but he's also he's witnessing it as I'm doing it now, as I'm, through having become more of a mature, human being, embodying love.
Yeah, and he is his mother's son, and I see some rebel in you. And I mean that, and I mean it in the best way possible. It's the rebels in this world who push change, who are leaders, who question the status quo, and just what you told us about your childhood, kind of being a little extra sensitive to the world compared to those around you, must have been difficult at times, maybe even isolating. But and again, your son, he passed early and he died early, and especially at that age for a guy. Well, I'll just speak for myself. Even I wasn't there yet at, he said 24, I think. Yeah, I wasn't there yet. And just, especially with the self-love and understanding yourself. And I think, I know definitely that, and you spoke about this, but through you, I think that love, or what he would have become on this earth, is kind of, I think it's positive, and it's, I can feel that, he was on the right path, based off what you're saying in terms of, the person he was. And again, like, a rebel is a great thing.
Batman was a rebel, I believe, right?
Yeah, Jesus was a rebel.
Yeah.
A lot of great avatars and saints and were rebels. I told you, is this Joshua, or is this
Sean was the one that just spoke. I'm the one that brought in the Batman quote.
Sean, you're absolutely right. I have been a rebel in a different way than my son, in a different way most people. But for sure, because I've always questioned authority. I always questioned the status quo, always questioned what was given to me. And I always had to reflect that through my own innate truth. I never took, and I never took, even young, whatever anybody told me as the truth. It always had to resonate within myself, because even then I knew that there was a truth inside of me. There was that imprint of what I think truth is, and it had to, and I had to, check in with that and say, is this real? Is this true? And now, of course, I live my life mostly according to that deeper truth, according to my own inner intuition that I now recognize is connected directly through the truth and through the essence of life itself. So, the goodness of life, the beauty of life, the joy of life. And so, in a way, yeah, even now I'm a rebel.
And so, what did this rebel write her book about, and why did you decide to write that now?
Well, actually, I wrote the book, I think it's going to be 2 years now in April. I always knew that I was going to write at least a book since I was a teenager, or since I was young. I just sensed it, again, that deeper truth of myself. I had a knowing, and I started writing, as I said earlier, almost very shortly after my son's passing, because the writing became a therapeutic process for me. Even before the poetry, I started writing, just my experience, put down, what I was going through and what was my experiences. So I had most of the book already written from 9 years ago, and I knew that I wanted to write it, and I wasn't sure how it was going to happen. And then looking back, after I wrote it, I realized, and as I was writing it 2 years ago, I realized that I wanted to write something because I felt like what my experience has been, it could be of a real true value to a lot of people who are going through similar experiences, and they may be lost as well. because I was lost, but I found myself. I found my way of how to support myself through the grief process until my rebirth. So I felt like that was very significant. And so I felt like that's part of my contribution, as part of my, soul higher purpose of why I'm here, because I'm here in this life, not only to go through my own, rebirth, go through my own resurrection, but also to help other people. And so I knew that, I felt that, but I was hesitating. I was putting it off because I didn't want to through the writing, having to revisit those intense experiences of loss. And so I wanted to write a book because I knew I was supposed to write a book, and yet, oh my God, no, I'm not ready. So I kept on saying, I'm not ready. And then, a couple of years ago, I was, really moving into, I took a marketing business program to help me with my own, my own coaching, because I'm a feminine power coach, a transformative coach, and I do, really powerful work to helping support other people in their process. And so I realized that I really need to to get out there into the world, more. I sense that this is my purpose. And so I sense that I needed to have some skills into how to market myself, because as you know, today, marketing is a very important aspect of how we share and how we present who we are and the work that we do. And so it was through this program, and that's why it attracted me to this program, because they said that one of the things they were going to do for me was going to help me write a book. And so I said, this is your opportunity now. I took it as a sign from the universe saying, okay, Medea, this is it. Because, you don't even have to worry about the publishing and all that stuff. That is, I'm not really a marketing business oriented person, being a rebel. So I needed somebody else to support me, to help me with that. So I took that and then I said, okay, this is it. And so I just, I made that commitment. And I actually, I took all the material that I had been writing 4 years earlier, and then I added some of the poetry. In fact, there are 36 poems in the book, and also added some of the, the experiential principles and work that I do as a transformative therapist and coach, and how they related to my own process. So that then the book is a combination of my experience and the poetry, and also a combination of the actual transformative work that I do, so that whoever is reading it, they can relate to it as well, and they can have some sense of like, okay, this is it, or this is how I could do it. And I've had a lot of people saying that. As a matter of fact, just this morning I was reading a message from someone who sent Messenger and I don't even know this person personally. She's never worked with me, but just through my writing and through reading my book, how she says, you saved my life. And so that's how it came about.
Wow, that's got to feel so good to know that not only that you wrote the book and that helped in a sense of your own grief journey, but to also be able to see the effect it can have on other people. Because you said like one of your missions here is to help others, and it's amazing when you can get that feedback that you actually are in different ways. So kudos to you to staying alive and helping some people in the process.
Right.
And you never know what that future holds, and you never know what and who will read your book, because a lot of times you never actually get the responses. It helps people, but they just never reach out. So it's nice when people do, because you actually can see that in someone else's journey and feel really good about yourself on who you're becoming as you move forward. I'm really curious, is there anything in the book about dreams? I know you had dreams. Did you write anything in the book about dreams?
Actually, I may have written, curiously enough, I did not have so many dreams of my son. I had a few dreams of him just recently, when he was young, a couple of them. But throughout the whole, the 9 years, I only had maybe 2 or 3 dreams. And there was one one dream specifically, and I think I wrote about that dream in my book, that was very significant. And do you want me to share it? Is there
Yes,
time?
please. Yeah.
So the dream was that I was in bed. It was the morning, and I was just waking up, and he came through the door, through the door of my bedroom. And then I woke up and I go, "Oh my God, you're here." I said, "What are you doing here?" And then it's like, I knew that he had come back from where he was after his death. And so I was like curious to see him. And he says, "Oh, they give," and he said, "Oh, they gave me a pass, a 2-week pass. So I came to visit. I came to visit you, and then I came to visit my friends." And I go, "Oh my God." I said, "Oh, I was so overjoyed to see him." And then as he came closer, I noticed that he had 3 gift bags. They weren't, those paper brown bags that, they can also be used as recycle, paper bags, gift bags. And outside of these bags, I could see that there were all these symbols that, to me, they were symbols of the other life. And they had these cosmic meaning, which I didn't have in that moment, but I sensed that there were these symbols, and they was significant somehow. And then, especially one of them, I saw that there was a light coming outside of this bag. And so I said, "Oh my God." He goes, "I brought you some gifts." And I said, "Really? 3 gifts, 3 bags?" And I said, "Thank you, thank you, my son." It was like, and even in the dream, I sensed that these gifts were very significant, were of a significant nature. And then he goes, "Okay, I'm gonna go say hi to hang out with my buddies, my friends for a while, and then I'll be right, and then I'll be back." And so that was the dream. And
Wow.
and so I think I've read about this dream in the book.
Wow, that's a beautiful dream. That's so interesting. And so I think it's very funny that he's got like a pass, almost like he's out on like parole kind of thing.
I know. And I said, "Yeah, really? You can do that?" I was so surprised that it was possible for dead people to have a pass to come back into life for a couple of weeks just to visit,
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I like it, and I see that a lot in different other dreams, but in different ways, where they'll give a reason on why they're there. And it could be funny. It's like something, the fire brought me back, or like there's all sorts of stuff. I've never really died. I was just hiding. So there's just different like reasons that the deceased can give to almost like carry on the conversation, because it's so shocking that they're there because they're dead, right? Like this shouldn't be like happening. So I think the three gift bags interesting. So what did you take that as when you woke up?
Well, I've been pondering on that, and I feel like, of course, one of the gifts is my own self.
Mm.
Really recognizing myself, my life, as a gift, and what I do, and the meaning of what I'm here to do, and my contribution, and me being part of the larger symphony, of life, is a gift. And then the love that I'm experiencing with my partner, Ivan, I is a gift, because the depth and how it's helping us grow and evolve into the truth of who we are through the love that we're sharing with each other is a really incredible, sacred, gift. It's a divine gift. And then I thought, maybe the book is also, a third gift.
Well, it's interesting. It's really interesting because like he could have brought 1,000 gifts, right? Like they have,
Yeah.
So it's like, is 3 an important number in your life? Like some people like view numbers as they're symbolic of in itself. Like, do you have that belief too?
That's a good question. I'm not really sure. I never consciously given thought to that number 3, but I know that number 3 is a significant number. It's the first thing that came to me as you said that right in this moment is the Trinity. Things come in 3, and so and then in 3, and then I'm sensing now that there may be more to this than what I just described so far. What I sent, what I sensed into the gifts, the meaning of the gifts. Maybe there's more to it that it's going to be revealed to me. It's going to make itself known to me as time goes by. I don't know. Maybe there is going to be 3 more gifts and 3 more gifts to infinity.
That's cool. And I think too, it's interesting. You said there's symbols they didn't recognize on the bags, and there's also one that was emitting light. So all that stuff's very interesting to think about, and that's why I love hearing these dreams, because they're so unique to the individual and to the relationship and the bond that the person
Absolutely.
has. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that dream. I'm really curious, what dream, if you could have a dream tonight, what dream would you want to have of your son?
Good question. One of the intentions that I've had all throughout, because I remember he passed on a Friday evening. I came home and I found him in his bedroom as he was drawing his last breaths. And then I called 911, and they came and they tried to revive him, and then they took him eventually to the hospital, because looking back, they couldn't revive him here. And I remember driving in a police car, because there were a lot of, 2 ambulances, all kind of fire trucks and police, because, he was a young person, and that's what happens when there is a young person dies, apparently, without knowing the cause of death at that moment, at that time. Then I heard myself in the police car, because there was nobody here, and then eventually, my best friend and some other friends, and I don't have a lot of relatives in Canada now. They met me at the hospital. I was by myself in the police car, and I heard myself say, "God, you cannot do this to me. You cannot take my son away from me, because I don't know what I'm going to be able to. I won't be able to survive it." And then on the way back, 4:00 in the morning, I was in a taxi with my best friend, and I heard myself say to God again, to the universe, "Okay, God, if this was really meant to happen, if this was his destiny and my destiny, I'm telling you, there's only 2 ways I'm going to accept this. These are my conditions." I was negotiating with God. I said, one is that I know what the highest purpose to his death is. For I need to know, because just the human level, okay, he just died. It's not good enough for me. I need to know what the highest spiritual purpose is. And the other condition is that I need to see him again when I die. Because I can't, just the thought that I'm never going to see him again, I just can't fathom that thought. I'm never going to see my son again. That's like in my mind, I couldn't conceive of that. So I guess one of my intentions has been all throughout is that I want to see him. I want to see him. And I have seen him, but not visually, through the energy that we have connected, his soul and his soul into the love that we share. So I could say that I have seen him. I just felt him, last week, but I actually haven't really seen him. How sometimes people say, "Oh, I saw my mother or my son," like as if she was really here. So I think that's what I would like the dream to be, that I see him, and that we can talk with each other, and that we can actually look into each other's eyes, and then share our love even visually, not just energetically.
Oh, that's interesting. And what age would you want him to be? Would you want him to be 24 when he died, or 34 now that it's been 10 years?
Another good question. I don't know. I think certainly more currently, not when he was young, and I'm not sure whether 24 or whether 34. Maybe 34 actually. Now that you said it, that would be a really. I think that would be who he is now, who he's become at a soul level, and how he can show that, embody that through the form as I knew him, through his physical form while he was alive in this life.
And what would he be wearing now? Do you think he'd change his style up? Because I know in my own life, I've switched styles around. Do you think he would be dressing the same way that he did in 24? Or do you think he would have changed it?
I think it's changed.
Yeah.
I knew someone who's he's a medical intuitive, he's a clairvoyant, he's a shaman. I know him quite well here in Toronto, and he's told me a lot about him, and I remember we had a memorial once when he came and spoke, and that's one of the things he said. He says he's really changed now, even physically. He's different. He's embodied more his soul, who he is at a soul level. So I think that's where, I like to see him in the form that he was when he was here, but I also like to see him how he's become at the same time, maybe physically, what he's wearing now. He's wearing something different than what we're then. And yeah.
What do you think that would be? Like a suit? Would it be like, a shining, white robe? Like, what do you think that his new attire would be?
Shining white robe. Not a suit. No, I don't think that even now he's a suit kind of guy. Maybe like a nice pair of pants. Cool, because he was always cool. He wanted to be cool, and I like being cool too. So that's important. So maybe some nice clothes, nice cool clothes.
Nice. All right, beautiful. And where would you want this all to take place? It could be anywhere. Could be your house, could be
anywhere. Maybe like the garden that is in
the garden that you wrote about.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that's where love exists, right? And I think there's a lot of love in what you've talked about, and the way I see it, it's you accepted to love unconditionally, because unconditional love requires you to accept all of it, which is also the pain that comes with love leaving. And talking about your grief and during those tough times of understanding why this is happening, why my son, which is an anguish that any person would feel, and then just incorporating, going back to what you knew was there all along, which was the love. That's something you can really feel, and again, it takes courage. It's a lot of strength and courage to kind of go through these processes and to be willing and open to transform yourself, and to willing and open to expose yourself and learn from that. And that's the vibe that we definitely get with hearing you talk about your son. And happy birthday to him tomorrow.
Thank you. And no,
I was gonna say, what was your son's name?
Oh yes, Nathaniel. And Nathaniel in Hebrew means a gift from God.
It also means Joshua's brother. That's my brother's name. That's my brother's name. That's what I said.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. The connection. Yes. Yeah.
Well, Medea, it's been a great conversation, and just hearing from obviously the way you speak, you're a creative rebel. You've got that spirit in you, and I'm glad that your journey has taken you here. It's taken you to many interesting places and given you the chance and ability to express your creativeness to the best degree. Would you can you please shout out your handles or anywhere people can reach you, and also your book?
Yes. And if it's possible, I would like to end with another poem, a short poem.
Oh, please. But, I think we'd love that.
Yes. So my website is Mastering Self-Transformation, all one word, .com. MasteringSelfTransformation.com. And so people can connect me through my website or through Facebook. I have a group. I have my own personal page. I have a professional page. So I can be reached through LinkedIn, so different social media, and that's pretty much it. My book can be purchased through Amazon, Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, and Amazon.uk. There are different kind of, different Amazons from different parts of the world, but Amazon.com, of course. And the book is called Facing Grief with Eyes Wide Open: How to Transform Loss and into self-love and higher purpose. And so, my process has been through love, but is really giving birth to my true self, and this, in my highest consciousness, and to really, and that's what I'm here to do, to help other people do the same. So this poem and that I'm writing now, that I'm going to be reading now, it's called Queen of Love, because I recognize myself as a queen. And now I have reached that level. And even though I'm still a rebel, and it's a queen of, I'm a queen of love. So this is how it goes. Heart calling to itself that which it knows, unmistakable image of itself. If you long for love, be love. Your longing is the seed of your gifts, eager to be cultivated. Beloved calls for beloved to be united. Soul rises majestically, savoring its own bliss. The garden is in full bloom, absorbing the mysterious light of the moon. Moonlight, a luminescent mantle of desire. The green skin of Mother Earth kisses my feet as I dance my electrifying bliss of loving and becoming. Lover and beloved are forever united, intertwined. Breath exhales. Here now. That's it.
What a beautiful way to end our podcast. And I want to thank you. I'm not really sure. We should title this one Rebel Queen or The Garden. I think Rebel Queen sounds apt. You are a queen.
Yeah.
You are a queen, no doubt. And I hope everybody. I wish everybody could see that in themselves, that they have the potential to be a queen or a king. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Medea. Again, it's been illuminating and just a pleasant conversation and hearing about your life story.
This has been really very, very delightful. Like really in the true meaning of the word for me, this interview. I just love the way your energy, both of you, and how you are presencing yourself, and how you ask your questions from where, it's been really light, and it's been really joyful, and it's been really sweet. I think that also, of course, it has been revealing, and I feel like my son is been present here, and he really has enjoyed this interview as well, because it's an interview from two young men as well, and so he can relate to you guys, and I feel that I feel like he's been part of this more than other interviews. I've had a lot of other interviews, but this one, it has a very unique flavor to it, and I think that's part of it. I think like he's combined, he's joined us. And so it's been very delightful and very, very beautiful. And I really, from my heart, I want to thank you both.
Oh, thank you for those such kind words. What year was your son born?
March 9th, 1985.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm 84. Josh, you're 84. I think. Yeah. Same age.
Yeah.
I love that we can feel the presence of Nathaniel, and we honor his memory, and you honor his memory by coming on here and talking about him and telling his story.
Yeah, I feel like this has been significant to me, being interviewed by two young men around his age, right before his birthday. day before his birthday. Yeah.
It was the secret fourth gift bag he never gave you in the dream.
Or is the first of the next 3?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he's got lots coming.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much,
Yep.
Sean and Joshua. So
Thank you. And, we're just going to let everybody know to please check out our platform at griefdreams.ca for more information on the topic. We added a donation button, and there are perks to those who donate. Also, if you want to help us out, if you have iTunes, you can rate us on iTunes. That will definitely assist in bringing this podcast up to the top page so everybody can see it. If you have Facebook, you can join the Grief Dreams group. You can share your dreams or hear more dreams of others. And we're on Twitter and Instagram at Grief Dreams. The children's book called Dreaming of Owl, authored by Joshua, can be found on Amazon. And we like to end our podcast with love and gratitude from us to you.
I have questions. I have introduced myself. You have introduced yourself. This is a very good conversation.